One of my research areas is carbonate budgets on coral reefs. Now, carbonate budgets for coral reefs really involve looking at all the destructive processes that occur on reefs, so all the erosion, the biological erosion by, for example, herbivorous fish species, urchins, bioeroding sponges, molluscs, things like that. Basically organisms who remove calcium carbonate from the reef. And to balance that out as a budget, we're also looking at all the constructive processes on reefs. So clearly corals are the primary frame builders on reefs. They are the main carbonate producers. But apart from corals, you also have a vast array of other carbonate-producing organisms, such as coralline algae, foraminifera, serpulids, polychaete worms, and bryozoans. And all these other organisms are actually also very important in terms of secondary carbonate production on reefs. So what carbonate budgets aim to do is quantify the destructive processes, but also quantify the constructive processes, and really balance these out to figure out if overall the reef is accreting as a whole. So not just if the corals are growing, not just if the reef is healthy, but if it's accreting as a reef, if the whole reef is growing, or whether actually the balance is upset slightly and the reef is eroding, which then clearly, you know, you've got problems. Now, carbonate budgets aren't a new phenomenon. You know, researchers have been carrying out carbonate budgets on reefs for decades now. But what we're really trying to do that's different is we're trying to model the dynamics of these carbonate budgets using a Bayesian statistical approach. And what we're really aiming to do then is to have a predictive tool to try and figure out which way that carbonate balance might go in the future. So we're collecting data in the field and we're really trying to use standardised methodologies that will make these studies comparable so that other researchers around the world can use them. But we're also collecting data in the lab. So the data in the lab is in our aquarium here at Essex, and we're manipulating the conditions there. So we're increasing carbon dioxide, playing around with temperature and light to try and use laboratory experiments to figure out the responses of these organisms to changes in CO2, light and temperature. And then the idea is to plug that data into the model and use that to predict the effects of these environmental changes on the coral reef. So the outcome of all of this really is to have this predictive tool that other researchers will be able to use, and also that will be available free for people to input their data on carbonate budgets. And clearly, being a model, the more data it has and the more reliable the data is, so using the standardised methodology, the better the predicted outcomes will be, and hopefully able to predict the future accretion and erosionary rates on coral reefs around the world.